Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to Authentic Black Goddess TV with your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur. Also, thanks to those of you tuned in to my other networks. So, as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channels if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. Don't forget that you can follow me on Instagram at Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur. Also on Instagram at divine_goddess_27. Also on Twitter at DGoddess27, Patreon at Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and you can also catch me on Clubhouse. Okay, so let's see who we have in here. Hello, Aaliyah, Dan Ruck is black, Marietta, Swirl Girl is black, Sylvia is black, Melanated Brown, Ty Valentine, Nora, Omari Rahim is black, Bill Smith, Queen Ahmadiyyah, Queen Conscious. Okay, Young King. All right, Arthur is black. Sonia, Kinla, Chelsea, Troubled Gaming, Sir John Doe, Claudette, Miss Natural Candy J is black. Seven Scales, Craig Killmonger, Brandon Cruz sings. Brandon, don't you start none, won't be none. Carol H and Sweet Pea, Hiram X is black. Okay, Forever a King, Stephanie. All right, everybody, it's black in the house. So, welcome, Black, everybody. Let's get to it. So, I decided, hello, Lee Harv, Compton Creole, Superstar Bella, Dee Heyman, Crystal. Listen, Queen, I miss your morning lives, but I am here for the evening smoke. Okay? That's all right, beloved. Just catch them on the replay. So listen, people, I decided to talk about this story because this is a story that's very important to me, okay? I learned about this story when I was in college, and I did extensive research on it and have, in fact, gone to some of the recreations of the scenario, okay? So with that all being said, this happened prior to Emmett Till's death, okay? Very heinous, some of the similarities as with Emmett Till. And I want to talk about this because not just because it's Black History Month, but because I know that a lot of Black people have never even heard of this story. Okay, and this case was never solved, though they know who did it. Shall I say? Yeah, they stayed on code, so nobody got charged. Okay, there was even an eyewitness who volunteered to give away the information, but they told him to keep his mouth shut. He was just a kid at the time. So anyway, let me just tell you what happened in this story of the Morris Ford Bridge. Okay, which occurred in Walton County, Georgia, right? So there was a man by the name of Roger. Hold on, people, let me get my stuff situated. Okay, there was a man by the name of Roger Malcolm. Now, Roger Malcolm had gone off to the military. He'd come home, and his wife, well, he felt like she had been messing around with the white guy or the son of the white man who owned the land they stayed on. Now, the reason they stayed on this land is because even though slavery had ended, they still had many Black people being sharecroppers, which was really legalized slavery again, right? Because basically what they would do is they would tell the Black people, you can stay here and work, we'll supply the seeds, and you can grow the crops, and you use our equipment, all of this, and then we're going to split the profits at the end of every month. But when the end of every month came, what did they do? They kept most of the money for themselves, gave the Black people peanuts, literally. And then, many of the Black people were illiterate. Some of them couldn't count very well or whatever, or didn't know, how to make sure they were being compensated fairly. And then by the time they figured it out and started complaining, if they thought they were going to leave off the land, yeah, they would kill them. That's what they would do. They would kill them. So they were pretty much stuck in servitude. Because then they would say things like, we didn't do that good. The crop didn't do so well. So you actually owe me money. That's what they would tell them. And what were the Black people to do? Because they had nowhere to go. So anyway, long story short. So Roger Malcolm comes home, and his wife, for whatever reason, I can't remember exactly what it was that gave him the notion, but he felt like Dorothy was messing around with the white guy. Not voluntarily, mind you. He felt like the white guy was making her do it and having his way with her. You all know how they do, right? Especially down in the South back then. So anyway, something transpired, and he was arguing with his wife. They got into it. She takes off running. So the white guy, Hester, I think was his name, Hester comes outside, And he's like, what's going on? So him and Roger get into an argument, and then they get into a fight or whatever, and Roger stabs him. Now, he didn't stab this white man. That's what you didn't do back then. And Jim Crow. So, yes, he stabbed him. He didn't kill him, mind you, but he stabbed him nonetheless. Okay, so, of course, the police came, and he was arrested. Now, while he was sitting in jail, they're all plotting. Because they're thinking, this Negro done stabbed a white man? Oh, okay. We're going to see how this turns out. So now his family, his mother, his wife, and his friend George, and George's wife. So they all go to see a white man by the name of Lloyd Harrison. And they asked Mr. Lloyd Harrison, because see, Lloyd Harrison, he's the guy who always bails people out of jail when they get put in there. Of course, he charges them, interest and all that or whatever. But so they go to him and they ask him, would he bail Roger out of jail? And he says no, he don't want anything to do with it. So they ask him for days. Mind you, Roger has been sitting in jail at this point almost 2 weeks. He's been there for like 11 days. So mysteriously on the 11th day, Lloyd Harrison comes to the family. He says, you know what? I'll do it. I'm going to go ahead and bail him out. So they go down to the jail, and as they're leaving, the mother-in-law, she wants to go with her. There's not enough room in the car. So they tell her to stay home. So they go to get Roger. They bail him out. And as they're on their way home, they may have thought it was just a little strange, because rather than going the short route to get home, what Lloyd did was he went the long routes, which takes you across the bridge, the Morris Ford Bridge. So I don't know if they were thinking anything. Nobody ever got to ask them, because clearly they died. So with that all being said, when they were going down the road, coming up upon the bridge, cars pulled up and blocked them in, blocked their way. And they're like, what's going on? What's going on? And they start yelling at them, get out of the car. So they come and they grab Roger, because that's who they want. And they come and grab, it's like a group of white men. Some people say it was between 12 to 15. Some say it was between 15 to 20. But nevertheless, it was a mob of white men. So they come and snatch Roger out of the car, and they drag him. Now, at this point, George, who's in the car with his wife and Roger's wife, he sees this going on, and then he sees them grab a rope. So he knows they're about to lynch Roger. So he jumps out of the car to help him fight. And they then grab him. So they, of course, they're outnumbered. It's like 20 people. So they grab both of them, and they tie their hands together. Like with their backs together, they bind their hands behind their backs. One of the women, and I believe it was Dorothy, in the car, she yells out, Mr. Wellington, leave him alone. Please don't kill him. After she says his name, one of the other one, who was like one of the main Klansmen who was there, because this was clearly Klan members, one of them says, get those bitches out of the car now. Because see, now she's said his name. And of course, they knew some of these people because they saw them. But the fact was, now since you said his name, he's not going to let you leave. Because just like you said his name right there, he thinks when you go back, you'll do the same thing. So he says, get them out of the car. So they snatch them out of the car. Mind you, the women are both pregnant. One of them is 7 months pregnant. The other one's 3 months pregnant. Oh, but they don't care. So they grab all of them and they drag them off into the woods, into a wooded area. And they start beating them and just beating them and hitting them with guns and everything. And they're just torturing them over and over for a while. And then all of a sudden, one of them starts counting off. He counts to 3. 1, 2, 3. And they just open fire on them. All of them just start shooting them. And then he counts to 3 again. And they all just start firing at them again. And then he counts to 3 one last time, and they just all just shoot them. Now, when the bodies were found, they were so badly disfigured, you couldn't recognize them. And the only way that Roger was even identified is because his mother recognized his mouth, his lips. Other than that, he didn't even look like himself. They had literally shot them in the face numerous of times. Their faces were completely mutilated. Okay? Now, with that all being said, I'm going to show you some footage. Just a moment. I've already shown my copyright disclaimer, because I'll also be showing some hold on just a moment. I'll also be showing a video clip. Yes, I'll also be showing a video clip. Okay. Let me share my screen, people. Everyone, please, let's get the likes up. Please like and share the video, if you could be so kind. Okay, now this is a picture before they were killed. In fact, this was on that day. This is George W. and May Murray. And then you have Dorsey. I'm sorry, this is George W. and May Murray Dorsey. And this is on the other side, that is Roger and Dorothy Malcolm. Now, the one with the black hat and the brown suit, that is Roger. That is who they wanted to kill. That's the one who stabbed the white man. And that's his wife, Dorothy Malcolm, sitting next to him, of course. Now, this is Lloyd Harrison, the prime suspect. You see, people figured out that when they first asked Lloyd Harrison to bail Roger out, they asked him for over a week, and he kept saying no. And then on the 11th day, all of a sudden, he comes to them and says, you know what? Yeah, I'll go ahead and bail him out. Why do you think he did that? Because he already knew. The Klan had told him, oh, yeah, go ahead and get them out, get him out. We're going to meet you on the bridge, and we're going to kill that N-word. All right? So that's all that was. And here's another thing, too. I want you all to also take note that this was like a lot of racial tension was going on during this time, because you see, Black people had just gotten the right to vote down there. You see, the Democrats, they had an all-white primary. They didn't want any Black people voting, but that had been overturned. And then they also had abolished the poll tax, which was another thing that kept Black people from voting. And so they had a white guy by the name of Eugene Talmadge who was actually running for governor. Now, one thing about Eugene Talmadge is he was racist as they come, and he didn't want Black people to be able to vote. So he was telling all the racist white people, which was most of them, he ran his whole campaign based on racism, sort of like Trump. That's who he reminds me of, that he ran his whole thing based on racist white people, pandering to them. And he basically told all of them, he says, you know what? You vote me in for governor, and I'll see to it that none of these N-words ever vote here again. So in Walton County. So that's how that did. And then also Walton County was so racist. It was, in fact, it was the headquarters for the Klan. So almost in every white household, there was Klan members. Okay. That's another thing to take note of. There was almost a Klansman in every household. So anyway, this is Lloyd Harrison. Like I said, he was the prime suspect when it all went down, because the FBI thought it very suspicious that he went and bailed him out on that same day. Now, this is where they took them out into the woods to kill him. 4 Black sharecroppers, Roger Malcolm, his wife Dorothy Dorsey Malcolm, George Dorsey, and May Murray Dorsey, were led off into the woods near the Morris Ford Bridge on the Walton-Oconee County line on July the 25th of 1946. A white mob shot the 4. No one was ever charged with the killings when the case was officially closed January 29th of 2018. And let me tell you another thing. They say they shot them. This is the story that the Hellman's crew loves to tell. They love to say that they were shot. They did a whole lot worse than shoot them. They tortured them for quite some time, and then they shot them. It was clearly overkill. And they also, according to those who went to view the bodies, said that they cut Roger's penis off. They cut his penis off, and some say that they stuck it in his mouth. And they also say that was a very prominent thing that they would do to Black men back then. I bet there are still those laws on the damn books. There's no telling. They are not human. They have no human DNA in them. We are the living among beasts. So yeah, so they cut his penis off, and they said they would do this all the time when they would kill black men. In fact, historians who reported on this story, from my research, they said that back then in the South, there was at least 2 black people being lynched every week. And that's every week on a regular. It was clearly genocide, just like the police killings of unarmed black people today. Same thing, still lynchings, and still happen just as frequently. And with that all being said, there was never any accountability, and that's why they felt they could just do it. Same thing with the police. Now, this is when they brought their bodies in to be examined. This is Lloyd Harrison. He's here with the on this picture. He's with Sheriff J.M. Bond, who's in the center. That's the one in the middle, of Oconee County, and the Oconee County Coroner W.T. Brown of Walton County, where the 4 people were slain near Monroe, Georgia, on July the 25th. They have the wrong date on here. It was July the 25th, not 26th. But oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, they were here on the 26th because the people were killed on the 25th. So this is, I guess, the next day when they go out there to examine everything. You can see the guy in the middle, which is the sheriff, J.M. Bond. He's holding in his hand a noose. Okay? He's holding in his hand a noose. Now, July the 26th of 1946, Lloyd Harrison and Oconee County farmer shows Sheriff J.M. Bond of Oconee County how the mob bound the hands of the 2 black male victims, George Dorsey and Roger Malcolm. Together, they bound their hands together before shooting them and their wives to death near Monroe, Georgia, on July 25th of 1946. And Harrison said the mob took the 4 victims from his car as he was driving to his farm. Now, this is how you know that's a load of BS, because he clearly says that the mob snatched him out of his car. But where was he when all of this occurred? So is he supposed to have just driven off and went home? And if so, why didn't he go and get any help? Clearly, he was in on it. That's why it's all a load of BS and nothing more than the Helmets crew being on code for them to act like they don't know who did this. He knew everyone who was there. Okay, he saw everyone's face, and in fact, they had him to go and bail him out just so they could lynch him. Now, this is the day of the funeral. That's them at the burial site. A major setup. He was there and participated. Of course he did. Of course he did. Okay, everyone, please, let's get the likes up. Let's like and share. Okay, now this is a newspaper clip, and it says, mob of white men slaughter 4 Negroes, 2 women victims. Georgia lynching follows stabbing. Monroe, Georgia, July the 26th. The bloody massacre of 2 young Negro farmhands and their wives by an armed and unmasked band of white men brought the promise of a federal investigation today. The ghastly details of the multiple lynchings were told by Lloyd Harris, a well-to-do farmer who was taking the Negroes to his farm and who was held at gunpoint by the mob. Now, he said he was held at gunpoint by the mob. So you were held at gunpoint, but you don't know who any of these people are. Miss me with all of that. He was clearly there, and he was in on the whole scheme. He was in on the whole thing. Now, he says he was held at gunpoint. Please. Now, this is a marker after they died. A marker is all that stands near where Roger Malcolm, his wife Dorsey Malcolm, George Dorsey, and Mae Murray Dorsey were killed by a white mob on July the 25th of 1946. Roger Malcolm's aunt, Rosa Ingram, reads the marker put up by the Georgia Historical Society on February the 12th of 2005 to note where the Morris Ford Bridge murders took place. The group commemorated the lynching And they worked for racial reconciliation, restorative cemeteries where the victims were buried, erected tombstones at the previously unmarked graves. So they didn't even give them tombstones in the first place. They had them literally in unmarked graves. That's how low down and dirty the devils were. Now, they erected tombstones at the previously unmarked graves and set up scholarships in the names of those who died. In 1998, they held a biracial memorial service on the anniversary of the attack. A grave marker stands where George and Dorothy Malcolm are buried near Monroe, Georgia. They were among 4 Black people pulled from a car and killed at Morris Ford Bridge on the Walton-Oconee County lines on July the 25th of 1946. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation officially closed the murder investigation on Monday, January the 29th of 2018, without ever charging anyone for the crime. This is their tombstone, George and Dorothy's. George was born in 1917, died in 1946. They were young when they died. Dorothy was born in 1926 and died in 1946. She was only 20 years old and pregnant. Now, while it was long rumored that the Ku Klux Klan had a hand in the Morris Ford killings, little evidence in the file backed up any early suspicions. That changed in 2008 when a confidential informant passed along a tip. A former Klan higher up by the name of George Hinton may have hidden evidence on his property in Monroe, Georgia. Now, the tip prompted GBI agents to visit people who once rented space on the property. The renters told agents that Hinton's daughter told them her dad, who died in 1996, was the gunsmith for the Klan in the 1930s and 40s, and he was a major player in the Morris Ford killings. They said if the guns were released that were used in the murders, it would come back to her father. That's what the renters told investigators. That information and details from the confidential informant were enough for a search warrant of Hinton's former property in 2008. Investigators scoured the property, dug up an old root cellar, and seized several Klan items, including a roster of members that included E.L. Almond, the funeral home owner who first received the bodies of Malcolm and Dorsey's after the killings. So the person who prepared their bodies was even in the Klan. Now, the roster listed Almond as the Exalted Cyclops in 1939. Agents also found a Daniel Boone 12-gauge double-barreled shotgun made between 1888 and 1931, but were unable to determine if the gun was used in the killings. When that search failed to turn up any new evidence in the case, which had as many as 20 suspects, went cold again and stayed that way until January of 2018. They say all investigative leads have now been exhausted. Special Agent Rebecca Shaw wrote this in December of 2008, after the failed search of the Hinton's property. She says the majority of the suspects and or witnesses are dead. The remaining suspects will not give a statement. The community has been waiting for someone to walk up to a law enforcement officer and say, "I confess my part. I confess to my sins," Brooks says. This is good that you'll be able to read the Bureau's work. Nobody's going to confess to anything. They can miss me with that. Now, the investigation was officially closed a decade later, taking the chances of solving the Morris Bridge murders taking it to the bureaucratic grave, leaving justice for the Malcolms and Dorseys unserved. Now, so in case you're wondering, their kids and grandkids probably still live on that land. It needs to be burned down. They probably do. They know exactly who to blame. Yeah, absolutely, they know who to blame. People need to realize that these devil's patterns are the same. It's been this way for years, always will be. They will never change. It's in their bloodline. Absolutely. I said this numerous times. I said they don't stop what they're doing. They continue to do the same things. They just change the names of it. That's all they do. But it's the same tactics always. Okay? Our people need to stop being docile because Congress, states, and local governments are murdering our people with this cave dog justice. And and it needs to be met with aggression, says Ray Williams. I agree, Ray Williams. So let me say this. Homicidal sociopathic murderers. Yes. You know they live off that slave money. Of course they do, but they can't give us reparations. Okay? So with that all being said, let me say this. Now, the reason we know so much of what happened on that fateful day is because there was one little person who saw all this as it happened. Lloyd Harrison, he told bits and pieces, and I'm quite sure since he was involved in it, he didn't tell the whole truth. Of course, we know that. But there was one person who did know the truth, and it was a little boy who was 10 years old. And that little boy, when the police came around asking questions, he told them, he said, or it was the FBI or the police, I don't recall, but when they were asking questions, he ran out and he said, I know who did it. And you know what he said they told him? He said they pulled him to the side and he said, let me tell you something. It said, there's a lot of people that were involved in this. Now, I could put some of those people in jail, but I can't lock all of them up. And so they could come for you or your family. So the best thing for you to do is to never mention that to anybody ever again. And so he never did because he feared for his life. And here's another thing that little boy said when he was an adult. He said that Roger was his friend. He said he used to come running up to Roger when Roger would be walking home. And Roger used to be so proud and telling him about his time in the military. And he had won medals and he was real proud of that. And Roger would show him the medals. This little kid looked up to Roger. And even as an old man, when he was doing an interview and he was talking about it, he got choked up. He said when they first captured them, he thought they were going to beat them. And that's it. Just like Emmett Till's grandfather said when Milo, J.W. Milam, and Roy Bryant came and got Emmett, they thought they were just going to beat him and then let him go. That's what the little boy thought, because he said back then the Klan, they would catch you and they would beat you. It didn't matter if you were black or white. If they wanted to beat your behind, they would do it. And that was just that. So that's what he thought they were going to do. But when they started shooting, and he didn't see all of the torturing they did, because when him and his little friend walked up, he said they looked like they were fighting. And then he said he saw them take out the guns. And when they started firing, he said it's like the whole earth just stood still, like time stood still for him. And then he said afterwards, when he went over, he said that Roger looked like he had smoke coming out of him. They had shot them up so bad you couldn't tell what they used to look like. And he said that his friend that was with him, or somebody, one of the people, I think it was him, said that his friend that was with him picked up a tooth from one of the victims and took it home and gave it to somebody for a good luck charm. Because let's not forget, they did used to keep body parts and all of those things for souvenirs and trophies, no less. So that's just all so crazy. Fear is what they thrive on, especially when it comes to keeping us in our so-called place. Absolutely. And this is another thing. Speaking of that, they said back then, during this time, you could not look a white person in the face. So if you're walking down the street and a white man or white woman's coming towards you, you better look down and bow your head. And if you're walking down the road and they're driving past, you better step out of the road, step over into the grass and get the hell out of their way. It didn't matter if you were in your Sunday's best walking to church and it was mud and dirt or any of that or muddy water or whatever. You better step in it and get out of their way. Okay, so that's how that was. And there was a whole lot of stuff going on, especially because, like I said, they were already ticked off because the Democratic all-white primary was over with. And so now black people could actually vote. And so they were doing these things, you know, killing black people just out of anger and frustration, and also because of their racism, of course. So this always angers me. I always think about ways to protect us. So they think, where did that comment go? Okay, so they think twice and know there will be retaliation, life for life. If they knew that, they wouldn't do the things that they do. And that's why they do it, because, you know, most black people are docile and just going to just go with the flow. Yep, you couldn't look a Mayo in the face or walk on the same side of the street as a Mayo. Absolutely. I couldn't have lived back then. I would have most likely killed hundreds of them before they killed me in the end. Blackfoot, I'd have been right there with you, okay? I promise you. All right. Yes. They felt they were so superior. I can't wait for Ahmadiyyah to deliver us and deal with the enemy. Right. European history is something we need to know more of. it can give us some insight on their descendants. Absolutely. If you want to know insight on their descendants, I suggest you read a book called The Iceman Inheritance. It literally tells you why they behave the way that they do. Okay? It tells you that. Stop spending money on the system and they will get the message. Yes, but Black people are not going to do it. Too many of us are caught up in the name brands and all of that. This is what so many Black people foolishly do. They always kept trophies that never changed neither. Postcards, etc. Absolutely. Absolutely. Aren't you happy that Limbaugh's dead now? I don't really care one way or another. I know he was a racist piece of shite, but I never really, listened to him or any of that. I've heard people talk about his foolery or whatever, but I'm glad many people are glad he's dead. I'm so glad. I heard Trump was all upset because, he was a Trump loving supporter. They are Neanderthals, Queen, says author. With all due respect, family, we are living in a different time. We are living in a different time, Michael, but they're doing the same things. They are doing the exact same things. They haven't changed. Please tell me where they have. Yes, we're living in a different time. We're living in 2021, but they're doing the same things, okay? They just lynched George Floyd back in May. They lynched Breonna Taylor. They lynched Ahmaud Arbery. They lynched Rayshard Brooks. They're still lynching Black people. This is what they're still doing. And let's not forget that on my other channel, I reported the story about how a mob of angry white folk came to that Black boy's house, busted up in his house. This happened like last year, months ago, not even a whole year ago. A 15-year-old Black boy. Do you all remember that? They came to his house because he was dating a white girl or something like that or another. And they just came to his mom's house and just busted up in there. Yeah, and one of them was a police officer. And he's the one that gathered up everybody else and told them to come. He was an off-duty cop. So please, these are the same people that we're dealing with. No matter what time and space we are living in, they remain the same. And that's just facts. I'm talking about our attitudes towards them. If we were back then, our attitude would be different. No, I don't think so, Michael. I'm not buying that one. I'm not buying that one. EBT card. Back then, my attitude would be the same as it is here now. Because what we need to remember is there were some people back then who had the attitudes that we have. Let's talk about some of them. Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman. There were some people who had our same attitudes. Now, although they got killed, but at least they fought back. And think about the Haitians over in 1804 with the Haitian Revolution. They were outgunned and outnumbered, but they beat the French and the British. So I scarcely think that those of us who are militants now would be docile back then, just because we're living in a different time. I'm always going to have the smoke, okay? No matter what century I'm born in, I'm always going to have that smoke. Not trying to hear it, Michael. See, I got the heat for crap like that. You will not roll up on me like that. Absolutely, Arthur. That's what you won't do, okay? Wow, penises cut off. They mad because they little penises are so small, says Loretta. Well, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing did always talk about that, the penis envy. I mean, why else would you be so obsessed, infatuated, and concerned with someone's penis? Who wants to do that? I mean, really? That young man has PTSD now as a result of that. Oh, yes. Yes, he absolutely does. This is a white man too, mind you. This is a white man. So with that all being said, I'm going to show you all the video. It's like 11 minutes, but I'm going to show you all some clips from the video. Okay? The ones that died, but they were outnumbered and bullied. Yes, but guess what? I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. Okay? So if you know that that's a death, that's the cost of freedom, is death. That's what I always tell you all. The cost of freedom is death. Okay? So you have to be fearless. Who cares about dying? Would you rather die fighting or live on your knees? I'm just saying. Some people were docile back then because they were simply afraid to die. And guess what? That's still the problem with many Black people. Many Black people to this day are afraid of death. Okay? Death is an illusion as far as I'm concerned. It's nothing but a transition. Okay? Going from one realm into the next. So with that all being said, exactly the cost of freedom is death. Yes, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And anyone who fears death, they are likely not going to stand up. That's what they're not going to do. See, one thing about the Helmets crew, they're not afraid of death. Has anybody noticed that? Did you all see that video the other day? When that man was walking and the cop was shooting him and he kept walking into the bullets. That man shot him almost 10 times. Did you all see that video? Please tell me you did. You all saw that, right? He feared nothing. He walked straight into the bullets. Okay? Please. That's how you go out. You don't go out begging and pleading on your knees. Miss me with all of it. You're going to kill me. You're going to kill me while I'm standing 10 toes down. Because what I'm not going to do is bow down and beg and plead. Why would you beg for your life? The person's already decided whether or not they're going to kill you. I'm just saying, please make it make sense. Some people are saying they saw it and some people are saying they didn't. Okay. I'm going to show it to you. Hold on just a moment. Because clearly I have it on my Instagram. Everyone, let's get the lights up, people. Let's get the lights up, please. Oh, and did you all know that someone else claims they put Gorilla Glue in their hair? They're a hot mess. You go out shooting, and if you have the opportunity to wrap your hands around the throat of a racist, I am so through with you right about now. Hold on. I have got to see the rest of that comment. Hold on. Oh, I'm so done. Where is that coming? You go out shooting. If you have the opportunity to wrap your hands around the throat of a racist, squeeze real hard, says Arthur. Oh, Arthur, you are indeed a barrel of glass, no less. Oh, my goodness. Okay. So let me share my screen and show you all this. This man was clearly not giving up. He wanted all the smoke.
Shoot his ass. Damn.
Now, did you all see that? Did you all see that? How that man was shooting him and he kept walking? He didn't flinch. He didn't even flinch. Does she put that Gorilla Glue in her hair? Yes, somebody else did it. That is my post, says Judah Queen. Yes, it is. Somebody said, damn, their days are numbered, soon judgment. Conscious Aloe said, insane. Had to be. Did you see? Silent D said, demon to the max. Lily said, I watched it like 10 times. I did too. Because I'm like, wait a minute, what now? I mean, he literally kept walking. I mean, he was unbothered, unfazed. He didn't even flinch. How do you not flinch when you're being shot multiple times? That was real crazy. Now, I read his obituary because clearly he's going to be buried on the 19th, I think. And so they already had posted on Google. You can Google his obituary or whatever his funeral information or whatever. And black man found dead in pond in Spartanburg, South Carolina. His name is Tevin Thompson, and he went missing last month. Oh, this is so crazy. They're still doing the same thing. Tevin Thompson. I'm going to look that up. But so anyway, I looked it up, and they said that he was a nice, loving family man, a husband and a father and all this, that, and the third. And I'm thinking about, was he crazy? Was he on some type of drugs? Because I've never seen anybody in their right mind, unless they're hyped up or amped up off of something, do that. And they said all of this started because he was an offender bender, and he got into it with the person in the car, and he pulled out a big piece of wood or something and was trying to hit them. That's also crazy. Now, what about how to change? Hold on. see that comment. I'm looking for it. No, what you said about how times have changed. Oh, okay, Arthur. Oh, that's the only thing that has changed is the time. Clearly, they haven't changed. They have not changed at all. I'm going to be traveling to Australia. I mean, I'm already in Australia. Oh, okay. He was zoned out. Yes. Yes, he clearly was. Clearly, crack, cocaine, and meth user is what Arthur said. You know what I thought, though? Seriously, Arthur? I think it was a demon. That's just me. He looked like he had a demonic presence in his face. That's what it looked like. He was on something strong. He probably had a mixture of meth and other drugs in the system and felt like super mayo. I cannot with you all. He's stupid. Lose your life over a fender bender. Yeah, it's crazy. It's real crazy, people. So that all being said, I'm going to go ahead and show you all this clip. Okay? For the I thought about that video that that Yarima did the other day. That was hilarious. Okay? Hold on, people. Now let me put this on the screen. I do too, Queen. We were talking about that on Twitter. The demon took over. Right. Dude was possessed and under something. Exactly. He had that mayo-based acid injected into his vein. Faith says, I said the same, a demon. Yeah, that's what it looked like. It clearly looked like that. That's the impression I got in my spirit. Okay.
In July of 1946, Talmadge's racially virulent campaign rhetoric adds fuel to the racial fires already burning in rural Walton County, Georgia.
I was working at the ice house, and some white people come there. They had guns, and had ropes, they had all those things down there, and they was in there showing how to make a loop on the rope or hang a person.
On the afternoon of July 25th, 1946, Lloyd Harrison, a white man, was driving two black men and their wives home from Monroe, Georgia. Harrison had just bailed one of the black men out of jail, Roger Malcolm, who had just been arrested for assaulting his white landlord. The other black man in the car was Malcolm's brother-in-law, George Dorsey.
George came home from the Army in 45, and I met him way down the road down there and walked him all the way home.
Now, this is the man who was a little boy when this happened. He was the 10-year-old that saw the whole thing.
And he was telling me about being in the Army. He had some medals on. He was real proud of that.
At sunset on July 25th, 10-year-old Clinton Adams and a friend were playing by the river at Moore's Ford Bridge.
We seen Mr. Lloyd Harrison's old big old black car. Seen him go down the road. And didn't think nothing about it. About one car, Dave might go through there.
And when he got along this spot here, he didn't have access to the bridge because they had a car blocking the bridge. One car came up from behind. The mob, about 15 or 20 armed white men, came out of the woods and out of the cars that was parked down here.
We seen them down there fighting. Some white men We didn't know what was going on at the time being, so we just laid down right side the field there, right on the edge of it. And then we seen it was Klans, because we knew some of them. And we said, they're going to whoop them. Well, that's what the Klan done, whoop people, you know. And it doesn't matter whether you're black or white. If they take an oath and whoop your butt, you're gonna get one. And they tied up George's hands.
And once they started into the wooded area with them, Dorothy, from what Laura Harrison said, yelled out, "Don't kill him," and she called the name of one of the people that she recognized. Then the order was given to go back to the car and get the 2 young black ladies that was in the car.
And they pushed and shoved them and knocking them around. And all at once, these 4 guys, they just come up there and they pull guns and bang. And everything went into slow motion to me. And they started shooting, people standing up over them, shooting down on them, people were shooting in the trees, bullet was going every which way. They was on the ground, and I was shaking so bad till I couldn't move, I couldn't stay on the ground, I was just shaking that bad. And then when the shooting stopped, everything went silent, nothing, just quiet. And I stood up, and when I stood up, I was just like, right there. And George, I knew him, I looked at him closest, I reckon, because he was my good buddy. And you could see the smoke and the air bubbling out, and their faces were just a mess. I mean, it was literally shot to pieces.
Malcolm and Dorsey's wives were both pregnant.
Dorothy was between 7 and 8 months pregnant. May was around 3 months pregnant. So we lost 6 lives at Moore's Ford that day.
I went over there and they were lying there and laying around, and I picked up a rope. I was a 22-year-old kid. And this man next to him said, "Son, let me have that." He jerked it out of my hand. And of course, I gave it to him. But I looked over and had a pool of blood there and picked up a tooth and brought it back home and gave it to a friend of mine, and she put it on a good luck charm.
My partner and I covered the autopsy and we stood and watched this rather awesome experience where they had to use an axe to open up the chest, where they had to use these prongs to remove slugs and pellets from the body.
I went down to the funeral home and looked at them, and that was one of the wrong things I shouldn't have never done. They just swole up and beat up. It was just awful.
We obtained no help from the sheriff's department. We received no help from the local police department.
2 or 3 days later, the sheriff was asking Mama questions about it, and I was just sitting on the porch. And I said, "I know who done it." Big mouth me on, let him know right quick. And he said, "Come here, boy." So I went over to him. And he said, "I want to tell you something." He said, "I can put some of these people in jail, but I can't put all of them. And if they find out you know what you know, It could come back on you, your mama, your sister, or your brother. And he said, the best thing you can ever do is never mention this again.
Rumors spread through the white community that 18-year-old Lamar Howard has told the police he had seen a mob gather at the ice house before the killings.
Next day, I went back to the ice house, and these two white fellas asked me, well, what'd you tell them? I didn't tell them nothing because I didn't know nothing to tell them. And then they kept on questioning. I know you told. What did you tell them? You better tell me. If you don't tell me, I'm going to kill you. And he pulled the hammer back on that gun and pointed right in my face, about this close to you. And that bear looked like it was that big. But I still didn't tell him anything. I said, I don't know nothing. I can't tell you. And then they tried everything they could around there. Then one told the other one, he said, oh, they let him go home. He don't know nothing. He don't know nothing. He said, now I'm gonna tell you, you go home, you don't stop talking to nobody, and don't do anything. You go straight home. I have had nightmares. I would go to bed at night. I'd be scared somebody would come up there and get me. I even changed my name from Lamar Howard to Lamar Jones for a long time.
Although Loy Harrison was the FBI's prime suspect in the killings, no one was ever charged, let alone tried and convicted for the murders.
And I asked him, I said, Mr. Loy, I said, why did them people kill George and Doris? He said, well, before George went to the service, he was a pretty good nigger. But after he got out, he thought he was as good as any white man.
Well, you all see that? He said before he went to the service, he was a pretty good nigger. But after he got out, he thought he was as good as any white man. Okay? That's what they said. That's what they said. They don't want black people to feel good about yourself. That's what you can't do. That's what you can't do. Yeah, he said he changed his name. Envy. Absolutely, Claudette. Jesus is black. Christ says, there you have it. Yep, I would hope not, honey. It is such a shameful subject. Blood on their hands. It's so sad when you see the survivors of slavery and survivors of lynchings who relive and talk about it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Also nefarious people. So that's the story of the Morris Ford Bridge. And they actually have reenactments of it on YouTube. If you all want to look at that, let me put the link in the chats. If you all want to see the reenactments, because they did another one in 2019. I think that's the last one that I remember seeing, because they do them ever so often. That's the link right there. So anyway, people, there you have it. And that is such a sad story. And that old man, I feel sorry for him being completely traumatized by seeing that when he was only 10 years old. And this was a man that he talked to every day. You know, that he looked up to that black man. So, and they had no shame, no problem killing their wives, though they were pregnant. They didn't care about that. Damn, brother need war pay for that experience. Need war pay for that experience. Absolutely. Just nefarious, okay? Just nefarious. And let me tell you all something. They don't want to talk about this stuff in that town, that's what they don't do, is they don't talk about it, okay? In fact, they were talking to a white man who lives there now. They didn't show his face on camera. You could hear him. He had like his face was like, you know, he was in the dark, so you couldn't see him. And he basically said they need to stop talking about it and just let it go so people can move on forward. Okay. And then there's many of black people, they're elderly black people. They don't want to talk about it either. Now, the reason most of the white people don't want to talk about it is because they know that the people who were involved in it were their family members. Because one black guy said, if you go through the list of names of the so-called suspects who were supposedly there, those are the same names of the people who live in that town. So that's why they don't want to talk about it. And you know what they say? Pay attention. They always justify and make BS excuses. You know what they actually say, some of them? They say, oh, they shot themselves. Yeah, they say they all got into an argument. They shot themselves. And so people were like, they shot themselves 60 to 80 times. And then they say, well, nobody did it. Nobody did it. This is what some of them fools will say. Nobody did it. And the ones that will admit that it happened, they'll say, well, somebody else came to the town and did it. Nobody in this town did that. Someone else came here and did it. This is the foolishness that they say. So they clearly don't want to own up to the things they do, and they never have. This is why they lie and whitewash and rewrite and change history. Yes, I'm serious, Miss Natural Candy J. They lie and say that nobody there did it. It had to be people that came from another town. And some of those fools even said that they shot themselves. They all got into an argument and they shot themselves. Now, at the end of the day, the mother-in-law, she better be glad that there was no room for her in that car that day, or she would have been dead too. It was just a stroke of luck that they told her she couldn't go because there wasn't enough room. That would have just been one more person that they killed. And there's another thing too. Now the black people from the town back then, they were all saying that the white guy Hester, that he was forcing Roger's wife to have sex with him. And then, but the white people, they were saying that they were just messing around. So it's two different sides of the story. So based on their history, I would choose the first. Okay, that's what makes sense to me. The FBI agent seemed traumatized too. Yeah, he did seem like he was a little shook up. It was all so crazy. I mean, just imagine. You know how they said Emmett Till's face was beaten to a pulp and he was unrecognizable. And the only way his great uncle identified him was because of the ring that he wore with his father's initials on it. That's the same thing about them. They said they couldn't identify them. And in fact, the only way Roger's mom knew him, like I said, was because of his lips. She recognized his mouth. That's it. They shot them so many times in their face. Okay, round after round. They shot them 3 rounds worth of bullets and tortured them for the longest. So that's all crazy. But anyway, people, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this broadcast. I hope you all enjoyed the story. Hope you learned something from that. I hope you all learned something from that because, like I said, a lot of people don't even know about this story, right? I first heard about it when I was in college. Prior to that, I never heard anything about this. So they have no solar energy soul. Right. This is my town. Shit crazy. Really? Well, so with that all being said, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this broadcast. I would like to thank you all for tuning back in once again to Authentic Black Goddess TV. This has been your daily vitamin. Please be sure you subscribe to the channels and also to those on my other network. Please make sure you like and share the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channels. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur. Also on Instagram at divine_goddess_27 and on Twitter at dgoddess27. Okay, Patreon, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur. With that all being said, I hope you all enjoy the rest of this lovely night. Do something productive and constructive. Don't forget to keep your non-perishable items, your food, your water, and a source of heat, whether it be candles or what have you. And always stay positive, but most of all, always remember to keep the Most High first in your life. Peace.